Today we're going to talk about how to design a study and different types of studies that you can create. So the first part of your notes here is just the three main types of studies that we can have. The first one is a survey, and that's where every member of a sample is asked the same set of questions and you write down the answers. So an example of this is if you randomly select tables at lunch and ask everyone at the tables the same set of questions, what their favorite lunch is. So just an example of a survey that you might conduct. Some pros and cons. We're going to talk about the pros and cons of all of these. I'm going to do plus sign for the pros. Surveys are a good way to gather opinions on things. Sometimes it's the only way to gather opinions on things because that's how you know if someone's opinion is. You just ask them. The downside of these is people may not tell the truth. How about we spell that right? They might be embarrassed about the truth or want to portray a certain answer, or there's like peer pressure involved. If you think about like going to the lunch tables, one person says pizza and they're like, oh yeah, pizza, I like that too. So lots of issues with surveys, but sometimes it's the only way to gather opinions. Another type of study that we can conduct is an experiment, and you're probably very familiar with this from science. It's where you apply a treatment to a group or groups and you measure the effects. So the experimental group is the group that gets the treatment. The control group is the group that doesn't get the treatment. And placebo. The placebo is a fake treatment given to the control group. So we'll kind of talk about those things as we go to the next column here. So an example of this is, let's say we have a drug company and they want to test a new allergy medicine. So they get 100 allergy sufferers, to participate. Half of those people take the new drug for a month, and half don't take the new drug. They get a placebo pill. Now, why would we do this? Well, there's something called the placebo effect, and it's this psychological issue is if you are getting the medicine, you're going to think it's making you better. So if you're in the group that's not getting the new drug, you might subconsciously think like, well, I'm not getting the new medicine, so obviously I'm not going to feel better. What the placebo does, it makes it so the person who's in the study doesn't know if what they're taking is the drug or if it's just a sugar pill. So that way they don't have the psychological effects of people thinking they should be getting better or not. So that's the purpose of the placebo. And then at the end of this, the participants report the severity of their allergies over the month. The important thing about experiments is that you have a control group because you need to be able to compare, like how did the two groups differ? Did the drug actually make a difference or was it just because of other factors? So that's the key thing about experiments. A big pro of this is you can compare results to see if the treatment actually works. There's a lot of control over this. So the way you pick your groups, the way you administer the treatment, whatever it is, you have a lot of control over what's happening here. The downside is not everything can be studied this way. For example, if I want to find out who people are going to vote for in the next presidential election, I can't do an experiment on that because that's that's like someone's opinion. I have to do a survey. There's also ethical reasons that you can't do this. For example, you want to see if your new drug is safe for pregnant women. So you ask a bunch of pregnant women, like, hey, why don't you try this new drug and let's see what happens. That's not ethical either, because if there's a potential damage to, the developing baby, that would be a big problem. So experiments are great. They don't work for everything. The last type that we have is an observational study. So that's where we take our sample and we measure or observe something about it, but they're not affected. So it's different than the experiment because we're not doing anything to them. We're maybe measuring something or just watching something about them. So an example is you randomly select people from the freshman class and record their height. This is an observational study because you're just taking people from the freshman class, you're measuring something about them, and that's it. You're just collecting that data. Another example of this would be maybe you sit in the back of Mrs. Johnson's class and you record how many times people look at their phones or something during class. So those are observations or measurements. Basically what you're doing is you're looking at data that already exists. The pro to this is often you get better data than a survey because people can't lie. For example, if you were to give a survey to the freshman class asking them how tall they are, you may not get accurate data from that. So that is a big advantage, is people aren't going to lie about it. But the downside of it is it only works for observable things. Observable things. Okay, so like we were able to measure someone's height. We can count how many times they look at their phone. We can't find out what their favorite school lunch is from this because that's not observable. We're going to get some more vocabulary in the next video.